If you've watched this channel for any period of time, you'll know that I do basically everything the opposite of how you would if you were playing competitive Pokemon. I run on 0 DVs, I generally try to avoid TMs as much as possible, and I try to limit my experience to beating the game on minimum battles. That means that I'm always underleveled when I go into major fights, and I'm using a Pokemon that is significantly weaker than my opponent, and yet we can still find a lot of ways to get through the Gen 1 games because the AI is so incredibly exploitable, and the movesets of our opponents aren't really that great. But that raises a question: how much harder would Gen 1 be if our opponents were actually running competitive movesets? Would the AI even be able to take advantage of those better moves in order to actually stop me from beating the game? What kinds of Pokemon will I end up using? Let's get into it and find out. So as we start our challenge, we're actually going to encounter Pikachu outside of Pallet Town, which is kind of standard, but this Pikachu is no ordinary Pikachu, of course, because it has been given a moveset that it would actually use in competitive Pokemon. That's right, our tryhard Chew is coming in with Thunderbolt, Thunder Wave, Surf, and Body Slam. Now, I have set this game so that we will have the same DVs as the AI opponents. That's 8 in every single stat except attack, which is 9. On top of that, we are never going to be able to learn any level up moves whatsoever. We have locked in the movesets that are listed on Smogon.com, and those are the only moves that we can use. I just used Smogon because it was an easy source to find movesets for every single Pokemon. So with that, let's go ahead and get into our first battle with the rival, and let's just see how this actually goes. And as we come up against our rival, we can see his moveset for this. He has Body Slam, Double Edge, Reflect, and Rest. That was the moveset listed for Eevee, so let's see how this actually goes. I'm going to just go all in on attack, I think. Let's see what Thunderbolt does. It does about half. He goes Reflect, and that gives us the easy victory. Tryhard Chew gets to level 6. Now, in order to keep this competitive, what we're going to do is we're going to limit our level to the weakest level of the next gym leader. I will be allowed to catch more Pokemon, but I will be limited to the number of Pokemon in each gym leader battle as the gym leader that's standing in front of me. On top of that, we're going to limit statuses like Sleep and Freeze in order to more accurately represent the fact that we're playing semi-competitively here. So I'm not just going to spam Sleep through the entire battle. I will allow myself to sleep only one opponent per fight, and same for Freeze. If we ever get 2 freezes in a single battle, we're just gonna have to reset and start the fight again. Outside of that, I have disabled badge boosts for this run, so we will never get a badge boost glitch, again making us on more of a level playing field with the AI. I'm just really interested to see how much harder this becomes. Now, it's worth noting that a standard surfing Pikachu can actually come in here and beat Brock on minimum battles. I've done it before with surfing Pikachu, so it's just a question of whether or not we can manage to still do that when we're running on these settings. If not, we're going to have to come back and fight additional trainers or catch an additional Pokemon, because we can go into that fight with 2 Pokemon under our belt, but if we don't need to, I'm just going to go in and just completely destroy him with our Pikachu. Now, Caterpie is one of the few Pokemon that did not get a moveset change because it doesn't learn any new moves, and we can simply sit here and spam Thunderbolt and get a pretty easy 3-hit KO on that Caterpie. That leaves us at level 6 as we go into Brock's gym. Let's just see if we can actually manage to beat him. So Brock attempts number 1. Of course, I'm just going to go Surf here, and let's see if we get the KO. We do. So we one-shot the first Geodude. That was easy. We definitely didn't want Earthquake or Explosion there, so that's pretty nice. Out comes the Onix. We can see it knows Bind, Body Slam, Earthquake, and Explosion. I'm going to go Surf. He gets me in a bind, and then he explodes, and I lose the first attempt. So yeah, that clearly doesn't work at our current level. We're still too slow for the Onix, but we can gain 2 more levels before we have to come back here. So I'm just going to keep the XP, and let's get 1 more Pokemon on our team. So I think that first attempt against Brock shows us two things. Number one, we're probably going to want to actually level up to an appropriate level to take on our opponents, since there's going to be a lot more explosions and strong moves to be used against us. And number two, we're probably going to want to catch extra Pokemon that we can use as members of our team. So the real question is just finding an appropriate Pokemon to join our team, and there are actually a lot of options, but I think I'm going to actually try to catch a Nidoran male, because while we could get a Butterfree that would be just in the range, or catch a Pidgey or something, Nidoran male has the best moveset of these Pokemon, I think, at this current point in the game. So just like that, we catch a Nidoran male, and as we can see, we know Body Slam, Double Kick, Blizzard, and Thunderbolt with this Pokemon. And now what we need to do is level up a little bit. We need to be a little bit stronger than we currently are if we're going to be able to beat our opponents. One other thing that I should note is I've locked all my Pokemon's stat experience to 0, so we will never gain extra power against our opponents just by grinding against wild Pokemon or anything. So I'm gonna freely just grind against whatever I feel I need to in order to get the levels that I need before I go back to Brock. And hey, as long as I have one Pokemon left over when he explodes, I should be okay. But let's test this and find out. So first off, with Pikachu, I'm just going to use Surf again on Geodude and get the one-hit KO. And now against Onix, it goes Body Slam this time, allowing me to land the Surf and knock it out. So just like that, Tryhard Chew does manage to get through. I spent quite a bit of time doing some setup on the back end here, so 15 minutes 26 seconds. This isn't really a speed run by any means. You're going to notice some resets here and there just because I'm messing with things on the back end, but we do manage to get through Brock. And while he does give us a TM, we will not learn it. And you'll notice that I do not have the Boulder Badge. I do not have a badge boost in attack. We're going to use some other means to get around here, but as you can see, the guy who blocks Route 3 is gone, so we can move on in the game. And now for this part, I honestly don't think we need any change to our team for this next section. I think we just use these two Pokemon to beat Misty, and eventually we're going to get a Nidoking, so we should be able to use that against Lieutenant Surge. So honestly, this might be the only two Pokemon that I get until we get to Celadon City. Now we are limited to level 18 for Misty, but then we get to go all the way up to level 28 with one Pokemon for Lieutenant Surge. So we should be pretty good in this next section, just gaining levels from these trainers. Now it's also worth noting I will not be using any vitamins or anything in these runs, so that yet again we stay on par with the AI. Since the AI doesn't get stat experience of any form, we will not get it either. So with that, we've made it all the way to the end of Mount Moon. It's time to take on the Super Nerd. Let's see how this fight goes. So he leads off with a Grimer that knows how to explode, but also knows Sludge, Thunderbolt, and Mega Drain. I'm just going to go Thunderbolt here and see what kind of damage we do, and then he explodes and knocks out Pikachu. So now we're going to have to send out our Nidoran male, only to find that we have another Pokemon in front of us that knows how to go boom. So we're going to have to go for some Body Slams here. I think we really want to paralyze this Pokemon. We do manage to get through to get to the final Coughing, but yet again, it's a Boomer, so he instead goes Fire Blast and knocks us out. But if he had just gone Explosion, we would have lost anyway. So this is the first place where we're seeing some real big changes. The Super Nerd goes from just being kind of a trivial fight to being a guy with 3 exploding Pokemon, and we have to find a way to get through this. So honestly, this might be a spot where actually using a move like Thunder Wave makes sense, since it could cause them to be fully paralyzed. Instead, we still get boomed on, and now we have to try to get through the rest of the team, but Explosion is just way too strong for this point in the game. So this time we managed to get back to the Coughing, and I wanted to try to freeze it just because maybe that could give us a better chance of getting through, but we can see Blizzard did less than half. So now I think only hoping for Paralysis. That's the only way we could get through this, since all of its moves are highly accurate and we simply couldn't get through. So it seems like we need to get ourselves another Pokemon if we're going to have a chance to get through this fight. So what the heck, let's get a Pokemon of our own that can go boom. We now have ourselves a Geodude. And of course, not only will Geodude resist things like Explosion, it also can blow up on its own while using Earthquake that could be super effective against this team as well. So with that, let's see if we can now manage to beat this Super Nerd or not. So against Grimer, I'll simply use the same strategy, a couple Thunderbolts from Pikachu, out comes the Voltorb, and this I think is the best spot to swap in my Geodude. He goes Explosion, of course it does very little damage, and we have made it to the Coughing at the end. Coughing doesn't have any super effective moves here, everything's resisted, and we can simply go for Earthquake. Granted, we take a lot of damage due to our low special stat, and Geodude does get knocked out. Still, we managed to beat the Super Nerd this time. Let's pick up the Dome Fossil and make our way to Jesse and James. So here against Jesse and James, of course, they lead off with Ekans, which knows things like Earthquake, so we got to be a little careful here. I'm going to paralyze this Pokemon just to try to help avoid that. Of course, Earthquake still one-shots me. So I'm going to switch in next to my Geodude, and let's go for Earthquake ourselves and get the one-hit KO. Out comes Meowth. We don't have anything super great for this Pokemon, and it does know Bubble Beam. It's only, I think, a 1 in 4 chance that it uses it, but still, we've got to be careful here. It goes the Bubble Beam and we get knocked out, so we have to send out Nidoran Male, where we will go for the double kick. It's going to be a 2-hit KO to knock out the Meowth, and we've made it to the final Coughing, but we don't have anything great here. Thunderbolt fortunately didn't do that much, but then we get knocked out by a Fire Blast. So clearly this isn't a cakewalk fight by any means. We're going to really have to do our best to get through this one. So instead, I'm going to go all in on attack on the Ekans. We two-shot it with 2 Thunderbolts this time. Meowth, we're going to go for the same, but Body Slam does knock us out. Let's just see how Nidoran Male does here. Of course, we can go for the double kick. We just really don't want to get hit by Bubble Beam with our Geodude. That's why I went this way. And now we've got the Coughing out in front of us. I'm going to Body Slam this Pokemon, hoping that we could paralyze it. Instead, it explodes, but that means that we win because we still had Geodude in reserve. So just like that, we have made it through Mount Moon, but this is proving to be pretty darn tough. Given that these opponents actually have strong movesets, Explosion seems to be the biggest problem in front of us. And not only does Explosion make the fights harder, it also stops us from leveling up with our Pokemon, so we're gonna have to try to fight more battles just to get enough levels that I think Misty will be reasonable, because currently her weakest Pokemon is at level 18, and I'm not sure we could actually beat her, given the fact that she's gonna be running things like Surf, Recover, and coverage with things like Thunderbolt and Blizzard. She might be pretty darn hard. So instead, let's try to take on the rival and see if we can win this fight. So here against rival number 2, he leads off with a Spearow, which of course doesn't have any good moves against our Pikachu. Basically, it can go, what, Double Edge? So I'm just going to go Thunderbolt here and try to knock this one out. We do not get a 1-hit KO, but we do get a knock it out the next turn. Sandshrew's out next. It goes Swords Dance after I accidentally Body Slammed. Let's see what Surf does. It does get the KO as well. Now on the Rattata, I'm going to go for Thunderbolt here and get the critical hit 1-hit KO. And now Eevee doesn't have anything good against a Geodude, so I'm going to swap Geodude in and let's just see what this does. Here it goes Double Edge, but we can go Earthquake to do pretty decent damage. Reflect is kind of bad for us, and it's not quite in the range to be able to use Seismic Toss. Here, however, if it doesn't go Rest, we're guaranteed to win with a Seismic Toss, and we get through that fight on the first attempt, even though we had 1 fewer Pokemon than the rival. Still, that mostly came down to the fact that Pikachu was really fast, and he tried to set up with his Sandshrew, which gave me a free turn when I misclicked, but still, we managed to get through. Let's move up through the Nugget Bridge and just see if we can get the levels that we need. Now, one thing to note is that most of the trainers at this point in the game do not have smart AI. So they end up using the wrong moves, and when they do use the right moves, like Blizzard here from this Rattata, it's just pure dumb luck. And what that means is that technically we could sit here and just spam moves, and as long as we're using the strongest moves against each opponent, we should be able to get through these fights pretty easily. That being said, even a youngster on the Nugget Bridge can actually be pretty hard here, given the fact that he just has much better type coverage with his movesets than he normally would. And when everything from the beginning of the game is already using like 90 base power moves, it can be pretty tough to get through these fights without going back to heal. Now, it's also worth noting I will be picking up standard HM users that I won't use in battle. Granted, I mean I could use them, but I'm generally going to avoid using HM users in battle unless it's absolutely necessary. But of course, if I do use HM users in battle, they count as part of my team and my Pokemon limit for the fight, so that I'm not using more Pokemon than my opponents. And as we make our way to the last at the end of this section, protection. Of course, we can make pretty quick work of this team since our Nidoran Mailed has nothing to fear from these grass types. However, sleep is a potential problem. Still, we do manage to get through, and we've made it to Billy Boy's house where we can tell him that we're now competitive Pokemon players. He's of course going to go do more research on what kinds of strategies we should actually be using here, and we're just going to take this opportunity to go ahead and help him out with that teleporter and let Pikachu be amazed at his crazy experiments. But we still have a couple more levels available before we have to go fight Misty, so I'm going to go ahead and take on some more required trainers here, starting with the innocent bystander who has a Machop and a Drowsy. So here for the Machop, I think we're just fine with our Nidoran Male, but we can see that the Machop knows Earthquake, so if it uses that move, we might be in trouble here. And Body Slam paralyzes us, so we get knocked out really quickly. Let's see if Thunderbolt from Pikachu does decent damage. Instead, we get Earthquake down, leaving us with only one Pokemon remaining. Fortunately, we get a Gen 1 miss, allowing us to get through that Pokemon and make it to the Drowsy, which uses Seismic Toss on us. And Earthquake is not a one-hit KO. Fortunately, it just Seismic Tosses twice. I think Psychic would have done us in. And now at level 16, we can get Nidorino. I just used a single rare candy to get there because I was actually having a lot of trouble with that Pokemon. But now with Nidorino in tow, we have a slightly stronger Pokemon. I'm not going to evolve into a Nidoking just yet though, because I think we want to keep our Pokemon as it is for now as we go into the Misty fight. Now Nidorino does require one change, however, because on Smogon, for some reason, instead of having Double Kick, Nidorino is listed with Bubble Beam, probably to take out rock types. But since we have a different Pokemon now, we're going to use whatever moveset was listed on Smogon. So with that, let's get into the Misty fight and see if she's possible or not. So Misty attempt number 1, she sends out Staryu that knows Surf, Thunder Wave, Thunderbolt, and Recover. So here I think the best strategy is to go for the Thunderbolt and just see how much damage we can do. She did over half to us with a single Surf. Now she goes Thunderbolt and knocks out Nidorino, so we're going to have to swap in Pikachu, where a Thunderbolt will finish her off. Next, it's time to paralyze this Starmie as it goes Blizzard and simply one-shots me, and now it's a foregone conclusion. She is faster and she has smart AI. She's just going to completely destroy my Geodude here. There's no way to get through that fight. Still, let's try this again. Maybe we can get better luck against Misty. Let's try a Body Slam to see if we can paralyze the first Staryu. She goes Thunderbolt twice, which actually does less damage, but then she paralyzes us and we're fully paralyzed, allowing her to knock us out. So out comes Pikachu again. We go Thunderbolt. We knock out that Pokemon. Now Starmie knows Blizzard, Psychic, Recover, and Thunder Wave, so it could theoretically use a lot of different moves, but even Psychic is strong enough to one-shot our Pikachu here, and yet again, we can't do anything to stop her from going Blizzard against our Geodude. So we can still technically gain 2 more levels with our Nidorino, and I think that's our first stop for trying to improve here. Otherwise, we might even have to catch a different Pokemon to use in place of that Geodude, because obviously it's useless in this fight. So now with all 3 of our Pokemon at level 18, let's just see what happens now, because perhaps if we can find a way to paralyze a Pokemon or something, we might have a chance to get through this fight. Still, it's probably going to be pretty tough, possibly impossible, but let's just see. So here I'm going to go Thunderbolt against the Staryu. We did over half. She goes Recover, but that's actually perfectly fine with us. Then she's fully paralyzed. We were fully paralyzed. Paralysis is giving us really bad luck here. Still, we managed to at least get through that. We can Body Slam here. And now I'm going to go Thunder Wave on the Starmie, but unfortunately we get knocked out in a single hit. Nothing to do there. I just explode on the Starmie because I can, and we're simply going to have to lose just like that. This time we managed to get through Staryu with no damage. Of course, we're weak against Psychic, so if she uses that move, we're just going to be out of luck here. I went for Body Slam to see if I could get the paralysis when she used the next defend, but it didn't work out. This time, however, she goes Recover with the Starmie, and that gives me a chance to paralyze her with Pikachu. I can now go Thunderbolt for pretty decent damage, It's still going to be a 3-hit KO to knock this Pokemon out, but as she takes down our Pikachu, I think we might just have a chance here. Seismic Toss from the Geodude ends it, and just like that, we were in fact able to beat Misty. It took me nearly an hour to get to this point. Granted, I was doing a lot of stuff on the back end as well, but still not great. This is a lot harder than a standard solo run, given the fact that our opponents actually have moves. So what's up guys, Tail from the future here. I noticed an error when I was editing this video. I realized after the fact that, in spite of the fact that I had a rule that I could only use 2 Pokemon against Misty, because she only has 2 Pokemon herself, I used 3 Pokemon against her, and that wouldn't be legitimate. So I wanted to come back and explore the options that would be available in this section. And I have a few Pokemon that I think would have been good secondary Pokemon in this fight. We've got Jigglypuff, Kadabra, Drowsy, and Bellsprout. Now, your natural reaction might be to just go Bellsprout. I mean, it's a grass type, it has strong moves, it's going to learn Sleep Powder, Swords Dance, Mega Drain, and Wrap here, so it should be pretty decent against Misty. So let's just test this out. If we start off with our Pikachu as our lead Pokemon in this one, we can go Thunderbolt on Staryu. It is not a 1-hit KO, but GX defense, so that gives us a very easy follow-up right there. Now she can send out her Starmie. I'm simply going to go for Thunder Wave, but Psychic still one-shots me. And this is where we can see the issue with the Bellsprout. This Starmie knows Psychic and Blizzard, and it's just going to use one of those 2 moves against a Bellsprout. So Bellsprout and Oddish are not a solution to this battle. Unless you could get the luck for her to use an X defend, allowing you to paralyze her, you're guaranteed to lose with these Pokemon against the Starmie. So we need to try one of these other Pokemon. Now, I chose Jigglypuff because it's a high HP normal type, and it's coming in with Body Slam, Thunder Wave, Blizzard, and Thunderbolt. A pretty decent moveset for this particular fight. So let's just see how it goes. So in this one, we can go Thunderbolt with Pikachu once again. A critical hit one-shots the Staryu. That's very nice. She sends out Starmie. We can try to go for Thunder Wave. She used Recover on full health. That is one of the best case scenarios here. Then we can simply go Thunderbolt. She can recover. We'll stick with the Thunderbolt, of course, though, because we just want to do as much damage as possible. This is going to be a 3-hit KO with the Pikachu, but if we do manage to get the paralysis on, doesn't really matter what we do now with the Jigglypuff, we will simply knock her out. Still, it's worth noting that that came down to getting the paralysis on the Starmie, and that comes down to the fact that she doesn't have a super effective move against Pikachu. Gen 1 AI is not smart enough to differentiate between damage dealing moves and non-damaging moves. So she simply looks and says, which of my moves are not resisted by Pikachu? That's Recover, Blizzard, and Psychic, and she's just gonna choose one of those 3 randomly. So Pikachu has a 1 in 3 chance of not getting hit with a damage dealing move here, plus an additional chance that she uses the X defend. So certainly possible, probably not consistent, at least with the Jigglypuff. Now there are 2 other challengers that I think are worth checking into. One is Kadabra, because Kadabra with its huge special stat is going to be more resistant against Misty's special moves. And on top of that, she's not going to want to use Psychic against this Pokemon, so her Starmie's only going to be able to go for Blizzard. And we are rocking Psychic, Seismic Toss, Thunder Wave, and Recover, so in theory, we could find a way to get through here. Let's test it out though and see how this strategy actually works. Keep in mind, Abra is available just south of Cerulean City, so certainly possible to pick up before this fight. So in this one, we once again lead off with Pikachu. We're going to get the 2-hit KO on Staryu. It goes Recover this time. It's 50-50. It either goes Surf or Recover, so that's perfectly fine. We will knock that Pokemon out. Out next comes the Starmie. She goes X Defend. Once again, we can go for Thunder Wave and then go into Thunderbolts. And here, when she knocks us out with Psychic, well, we're just coming out with Kadabra. And just to test this out, let's see how much damage she would do against Kadabra with one of her damaging moves. Of course, she's going to want to use Recover a lot here, but we can see Blizzard does just over half to Kadabra. So even if she wasn't already paralyzed, a non-critical hit is definitely not knocking out Kadabra here, and that gives us all the time that we would need in order to simply paralyze her and knock her out with Seismic Toss. So if we just test this a little bit more, in this one we get knocked out by a Psychic with our Pikachu. We can send out Kadabra next though. we will go for Thunder Wave and Paralyzer, because again, in this one, she's either going to use Recover, Thunder Wave, or Blizzard. She's 2 out of 3 to not even attack us. And after we get her paralyzed, we can go into Seismic Toss to start dealing damage. X Defend really doesn't matter to us. Sure, she can paralyze us too, and if she lands 2 blizzards, we will lose, but that's really the worst case scenario. We could also go for Psychic in an effort to try to lower her special here. So yet again, while it's not perfectly consistent, we can get the ranges in order to win this fight with the Kadabra strat, and Kadabra is possibly the best option that's currently available for getting through Misty in this fight. That being said, there is one last option. It would require us to go down to Vermilion City and then catch a wild Pokemon out to the east of there, but Drowsy is available. Gen 1 Drowsy also has pretty good special and comes with Thunder Wave, Hypnosis, Psychic, and Seismic Toss. So while we don't have a recovery move, we do have a sleep move. And remember, the rules are we can sleep 1 Pokemon per battle. So in this scenario, we would simply go Thunderbolt on the Staryu. We can get the easy 2-hit KO with our Pikachu. Then we can try to Thunder Wave here, but it doesn't really matter. If we get knocked out, we simply send out Drowsy next. And once again, oh, we get critical hit. But a non-critical hit will not knock out Drowsy here. So coming back to try this again, she goes for Thunder Wave on us. Blizzard without a critical hit basically leaves us in the same range as we were previously with our Kadabra, and with her asleep, we can just go into Seismic Toss. It's going to be a 4-hit KO to knock her out with Seismic Toss here, but if we can ever just get the luck for her to use an X Defend or something and get her to sleep, we should have pretty good odds of getting through this. This time we managed to get her to sleep without being paralyzed, so we can simply go for the Seismic Toss, and just like that, we managed to win the fight. So the point overall is that there are plenty of ways to get through Misty here with just 2 Pokemon. You're probably going to lose Pikachu in the process, but there are enough good options available in the form of Jigglypuff, Kadabra, and Drowsy to make that fight manageable. Kadabra is probably the best of these options overall, given the fact that it can also use Recover, so it can simply heal up if it does take a Blizzard there in order to hopefully make the fight more consistent. Drowsy is probably second best, though the Hypnosis strat is really inconsistent, especially if you did somehow manage to paralyze her already. Hypnosis would just be useless, so you'd really prefer to just have the Kadabra here. And as you guys will see as we go through the video, this doesn't really change the rest of my strategy very much, and I'm pretty sure this is the only spot where I messed up and used too many Pokemon in the battle. So with that, let's get back to the action, moving on to the Lieutenant Surge section. But now I think the best decision is to evolve our Nidorino into a Nidoking, because I think that's going to be our best Pokemon for Lieutenant Surge. And of course, with Nidoking comes another moveset change. We have added the move Earthquake in the place of Bubble Beam. I'm just going to go ahead and heal up in order to get the PP amount right. But with Earthquake as a same type move, this should be a pretty good way to get through this next fight against Lieutenant Surge. Granted, we have to get there first. We still have to fight rival number 3 and a few other trainers on the road, see if anything actually gives us any difficulty. Now I'm going to try to take these fights with Nidoking, given the fact that we need to get levels before we fight against Lieutenant Surge. So let's just see how this goes. So first up, we've got rival number 3. I'm going to come in with Nidoking, of course. Thunderbolt on the Spearow is enough to get the 1-hit KO. Let's go Earthquake on the Rattata, which is also a 1-hitter. Sandshrew comes out, we can go Blizzard and easily knock that Pokemon out. Finally, Eevee, let's just go with the Earthquake. It's an easy 1-hit KO as we get through that rival. Now, we're still 7 levels lower than Lieutenant Surge, but I'm not sure we'll need all those levels. So let's go ahead and just get cut and try to go fight Lieutenant Surge one time. So we're coming in, of course, immune to electric type moves, and we have Stab Earthquake. It is worth noting that Raichu will know Surf, but Lieutenant Surge does not have Smart AI in Pokemon Yellow. So it's a 1 in 4 chance that he uses it. Otherwise, I think we win, but let's find out. So Lieutenant Surge attempt number 1, I'm just going to go Earthquake. He tried to use Thunder Wave, which has no effect, and Earthquake doesn't quite get the one-hit KO. He body slams with a critical hit, but we survive and knock him out on the next turn. So as usual, Lieutenant Surge is the trash man. We easily take him down, and we can move on in this challenge. And with that, I'll simply get a bike voucher and then make my way back up to Cerulean City. So now we can make our way towards the rock tunnels, starting off with the Wrapping Lass. Fortunately, given our high level and the fact that we have pretty strong moves like Blizzard, we can get through this trainer pretty easily, assuming that we actually manage to hit. And I'm just going to take this section to gain a few levels, of course, because we've got Erika upcoming. We're going to need to be at a higher level to get through her. We're going to probably end up changing up our team, if I have to guess, because our current team probably isn't going to cut it for that fight. First, however, we have to get through the rock tunnel, and there are going to be some challenging spots in this section. Not only is the self-destruct hiker actually going to be using explosion now, but opponents like this Pokemaniac have really well-rounded movesets. We're dealing with Earthquake, Body Slam, Blizzard, and Counter from this Cubone. And when we miss our Blizzard, we take a lot of damage back. The Slowpoke as well is running Amnesia, Surf, Thunder Wave, and Rest. We're hoping that Thunderbolt is enough. It's not, but she uses Rest, so we're able to knock this Pokemon out in 2 hits. Still, I'm going to avoid any optional battles in here for now because I think we're going to want to take those battles later on with a better team. So for now, let's get straight to the Rock Tunnel Hiker and just see how this fight actually goes. Now, of course, we just want to go Blizzard with our Nidoking here just because of the low special stat on these Geodudes. I think this is the best play. We easily knock out the first Geodude, and Graveler goes down in a single hit as well. So we easily win that fight. Even with him knowing better moves, he just never got a chance to use them. But now I think we need to think about getting a newer Pokemon, and the best place to do it is going to be here in Lavender Town. I'm going to catch myself a Haunter inside of the tower. I think that's the best Pokemon I can get for the next couple sections. Still, let's go ahead and see how we actually do against rival number 4. He's got 5 Pokemon at this point. He might prove to be a major challenge. Let's see. So he leads off with Fearow, of course. I'm going to go Blizzard and not get the one-hit KO. It's going to be a 2-hitter, but he just goes Agility, so that's perfectly fine. That is one spot where our typing is actually affecting the AI. He just wants to use Agility because we're a poison type. Now against the Magnemite, we can go Earthquake and get the easy KO. Shelter comes out. I'm going to go Thunderbolt and get another KO. Nice and easy. Blizzard on the Sandshrew is enough. And now Earthquake for the Eevee. Of course, this is the last time we're going to see Eevee. It's going to turn out to be a 2-hit KO, but we get through thanks to Rest. So just like that, we have cheesed the rival. Now, one other Pokemon that I'm going to catch here is a Kadabra, because Kadabra could be really, really good later on in this challenge. It has a pretty good moveset with Psychic, Thunder Wave, Seismic Toss, and Recover that could cover a lot of opponents and should help us against Agatha even in the late game. So just like that, our Magicmon joins the team, and we're going to take the opportunity to gain additional levels with this Pokemon as well. I'm also going to take the opportunity to pick up the Eevee here in Celadon City, and let's go ahead and evolve this Pokemon into something a little more useful. It is time for one of my personal favorite Pokemon. Let's get ourselves a Jolteon. So with that, I think our Pikachu has outlived his usefulness, so we're simply going to get rid of him and instead take out that Eevee that we just got and evolve it immediately. And just like that, Jolteon is going to come in with a moveset of Thunder Wave, Thunderbolt, Pin Missile, and Double Kick, ready to go ahead and get into some action. So with our updated team now of Kadabra, Jolteon, and Nidoking, let's go ahead and make our way down into the Rocket Hideout and just see how many levels we can gain with these Pokemon before we go and try our hand at Erika. Now, of course, Stab Psychic is going to make this section pretty darn easy for our Kadabra, but we're going to need to gain levels with this Pokemon in order to have a reasonable chance in the next gym. And honestly, this Pokemon could be our main lead for Erika. Koga probably is pretty useful against Sabrina herself, since she'll also be using a Kadabra, and this Pokemon will will likely be useful against Giovanni, so Blaine is the only spot where I might swap it out for something else. Now, the one issue with Kadabra is that I don't have any way to trade it in the game in order to get access to a Alakazam, so we're going to be stuck with the mid-stave evolution if we use this Pokemon going forward. The same will be true if we get a Haunter later on, which I am planning to do, so we're going to have to think about that just a little bit, whether or not this is actually the best strategy. Still, for now, we'll come into the Jesse and James fight, where we're going to use our Stab Psychic to one-shot the first Coughing. Meowth, I think we just do more of the same. It goes Thunderbolt, but then we're going to two-shot this Pokemon, but Body Slam actually did us in, so not much to do there. We're just going to send out Jolteon next. Let's go Double Kick to finish off that Meowth. I guess Thunderbolt here to try to knock out the Ekans. It is enough. So we managed to get through and we're on to Giovanni, but I think we want to go heal up because we're going to want to be able to get more levels with that Kadabra. So after healing, let's take on Giovanni and see how he goes. Of course, he's going to lead off with Onyx. I'm just going to go Psychic and get the one-hit KO. Rhyhorn is out next. Once again, Psychic does not get a one-hitter. It's going to be a two-hitter, but we do manage to knock that Pokemon out. Persian is out last, and it outspeeds and knocks me out with a Body Slam. Let's see if we can manage to get through with our next two Pokemon. I'm going to go Thunder Wave here in order to paralyze it just to give myself slightly better odds. I'm not sure if Double Kick is the best play here. Let's just try it. He Guard Specs. Let's see what Thunderbolt does. Thunderbolt was enough to knock it out from that range, so Thunderbolt was probably the stronger play there. Still, we managed to get through, losing only one Pokemon to Giovanni. That's really not too bad, and we can move on in the game. Still, that makes it pretty clear I do want to gain more levels with my Kadabra. I think the Fighting Dojo is a great place to do that. Let's just see if we can manage to gain some levels here. So we do manage to make it to the Dojo Master, but not without a few resets. And we are slower than Hitmonlee here, which knows High Jump Kick, Meditate, Body Slam, and Seismic Toss. Instead, he goes X Attack turn 1, and that allows us to knock that Pokemon out. Hitmonchan comes out next. We've got Submission, Agility, Body Slam, and Seismic Toss here. It goes Agility, which allows us to get the easy victory. So just like that, we can pick up a trophy Pokemon. I'll just go ahead and get Hitmonlee, which we will just go ahead and name Jet Li, and let's get ourselves out of here. Now, first things first, we've got to take on the Channelers here inside of the tower. Psychic should make very quick work of these Ghastlies though. We have to make sure that we're one-shotting here to keep from getting boomed on. And here we can find ourselves a Haunter, which yet again we want to try to catch. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out, so we're just going to have to make our way upstairs so that we can get healed up. We managed to catch a Haunter on the upper floor though, so let's just check and see how this one is looking. Fortunately, we can pretty easily heal right here, making this a pretty good training spot all around, but we're just going to take minimum battles at this point as much as we possibly can, since we have an easy time getting through all these Channelers anyway. And with that done, we can make our way to the end of this section where we've got to take on Ghosty Mama. Let's see how Marowak looks in this fight. It's coming in with Earthquake, Body Slam, Blizzard, and Fire Blast. Of course, it's going to be just completely random here, but let's see how much damage Psychic does. We do not get a one-hit KO, but we survive the Body Slam. That allows us to use Seismic Toss to finish the fight. And with that, it's time to get to Jesse and James at the top of the tower, and let's see if Kadabra is enough here. Otherwise, we're going to have to dig in probably to Nidoking, and I would use our brand new Haunter to try to win this fight. So first up against Meowth, I'm just going to go Psychic here. We do get the one-hit KO. Arbok is out next. Psychic does one-shot that Pokemon as well. Weezing, we've got to be careful. This one could go Hyper Beam or Explosion, which probably kills our Kadabra. Psychic does manage to get the one-hitter though, as we get to level 29. So all in all, a pretty easy section of the game because of the fact that we have a strong Psychic type. And now we need to decide what Pokemon to use in our next fight against Erika. Now, it's just worth noting that all of these trainers have better movesets than they normally would, including Erika. She's got more coverage than would be typical, plus she's going to have more status to use against us. So we're really going to be hoping that we can actually manage to get through this gym without too much difficulty. So starting off with this beauty who has Execute, usually this Execute is no problem. It simply uses Barrage as a damaging move, but here we've got to worry about Explosion plus powders that could do significant damage to us. So I think our best play is probably to paralyze it. We get put to sleep, and of course, since we have only one Pokemon, we technically just lost that fight. So this time, let's go into this fight instead with Jolteon, because we know Pin Missile, which is 4 times super effective, might give us a decent chance here. We survive the Psychic, and then we get the Explosion, so yet again, we technically lose. We might need to go for Paralysis, then into the Pin Missile. So this time I'm going to paralyze the Execute, then go to Pin Missile, and we're really just hoping not to get that Explosion. This time we get a nice critical hit, so we do manage to knock it out with our Jolteon. So now we need to decide which Pokemon to use against Erika. I'm going to use Jolteon, I'm going to use my Kadabra, and I'm going to use my Haunter, and let's just see if those 3 Pokemon are enough. We are somewhat under leveled here, so let's see how this fight actually goes. So first up, she has a Tangela that knows Sleep Powder, Stun Spore, Bind, and Mega Drain. So I think the best play here is to paralyze this Pokemon, and then technically Pin Missile is our best move here, though it's really not doing much damage. So I think this is a good spot to swap out, and honestly, Haunter makes the most sense here. Our opponent is not going to have any moves that are really effective here, so I think she's just going to randomize, and Mega Drain won't do much damage. So let's go for Nightshade, just trying to deal as much damage as we can. She's going for Bind even though it can't hit us, and we managed to knock that Pokemon out with Nightshade. Out next is Weepinbell. I'm going to use this as my one Pokemon to use a sleep move on, so we put the Weepinbell to sleep. Now we can go into the Nightshades, just hoping to slowly whittle this Pokemon down. After it goes down, we've got Gloom, and honestly, I don't have anything great here, but Double Edge can't hit me. It can go for these statuses, but that's about it. So I'm just going to go for Thunderbolt to try to paralyze it, but honestly, I don't know. Maybe Nightshade into Explosion is the best play. Here, we managed to Nightshade it down, so just like that, we managed to beat Erika on the first attempt, and just like that, it says an hour 39 minutes, but keep in mind, I'm doing all this kind of manually, changing my movesets. My setup is actually not set up for team challenges, so I keep having to change my Pokemon's name and typing as well. Still, we have made progress through 4 gyms up to this point. But with Erika going down, now is the part of the run where this is gonna get potentially really hard. From here on out, everything's like level 50. I think it's like level 46 going into Koga, and then after that, it's literally level 50 for pretty much everything. I think Rival 5 actually has the lowest leveled team that's remaining, so we might want to go try to take on the Rival first. Of course, we can just grind against trainers in Silphco if we need to level up our team. Still, I'll take the required battles first, and then let's just see when we actually need to grind. So here we are ready to take on the Rival. I just want to see what his team looks like on this first attempt. Let's see what kind of ranges we actually get. Now, he leads off with Sandslash, so obviously we don't want Jolteon out first. So this honestly might be a spot where our Hitmonlee that we got from the Fighting Dojo is our best lead. I think I'm just going to stick with the 5 Pokemon that I have for now, but let's just see how they actually perform here. So Rival 5 attempt number 1, of course he's 8 levels higher than us with his first Pokemon, so we're gonna need to get some good setup here, I think, to have a decent chance. Earthquake just simply one-shots us. And here we do about half with Kadabra against the Sandslash. We do manage to knock it out after that. Out comes the Cloyster, where I think I'm just going to stick with Psychic and see how much damage I do. Blizzard does not one-shot, so we manage to get another KO with our Kadabra. I'm just going to stick with Psychic here on Magneton. We get paralyzed, and of course we're going down the next turn. That's really not too bad. Let's see how Nidoking does here now. As we go Earthquake, he goes Rest with his Magneton, but that's obviously not going to be enough. We easily knock that Pokemon out. Kadabra's out next. This Pokemon should only want to use Psychic against us, and it's going to be enough to simply knock us out. So let's send out our Jolteon. Let's see if we can get the paralysis on this Pokemon, and then let's just see what Pin Missile does. It's not doing a ton of damage, but he is forced to recover. And if we can just get him to, for example, be fully paralyzed for a turn, we should be able to knock this Pokemon out. Instead, he goes for Seismic Toss. That allows us to use Thunderbolt to knock that Pokemon out. Now we've got the Flareon in front of us. I'm going to paralyze this Pokemon first. He goes for Fire Spin. We're down to our last Pokemon in Haunter, and we just have to see if we can manage to deal enough damage. Our Thunderbolt did basically nothing. I think Nightshade would have been better, but Fire Blast was enough to one-shot us, and that's it for that first attempt against the rival. So we clearly need to do a bit more level grinding before that fight's even gonna go. Like I said, this is the lowest leveled opponent that we currently have available to us, so we're gonna just have to try to get more levels by fighting rando trainers till we get closer to that level 38. So now once again, a few levels higher, let's try this rival fight again. I fought tons of overworld trainers in order to get the levels to get to this point. And here we're still doing a little less than half with high jump kick, but a critical hit does then knock that Pokemon out. I'm going to try to go for Meditate here on the Cloyster, hoping that it just, yes, goes for rest against our Hitmonlee, allowing us to set up all 6 Meditates. Then we can go into high jump kick and one-shot that Pokemon. Magneton, we're going to do more of the same. We're going to try to body slam Kadabra. Of course, Psychic will simply one-shot us. That's perfectly fine though. That's kind of what we expected. I'm going to send out my Jolteon next and go for the Thunder Wave here. And with this opponent paralyzed, now we can try pretty much anything, but I'm going to try Pin Missile to see what damage it does. We managed to knock our opponent out. I'm going to just go Thunderbolt here on this Flareon. It's going to knock me out with Flamethrower. That's perfectly fine. Out next, we're going to send our Haunter and go for the Sleep. This is my one Sleep Pokemon in this fight. And now I'm going to go into the Nightshades to try to knock this one out. And sure enough, we managed to beat the rival. It took quite a few attempts there, but once we came back at this level, it really wasn't too bad. So now we just have Jesse and James and Giovanni, who should not be particularly hard. So let's just easily knock them out and move on in the game. Here in the Giovanni fight, we're going to lead off with our Hitmonlee. I'm going to set up a couple of Meditates, and then let's just see what Body Slam does here. We get knocked out instead by a critical hit Thunderbolt. So nothing to do there. Let's just send out our Kadabra and get the easy KO on this Pokemon. Persian is still pretty fast, but I think we can deal enough damage, provided he doesn't go for Slash there. We easily knock him out. Rhyhorn's out next. It doesn't have a great special, so we one-shot. And Nidoqueen, we can go Psychic. It's not a one-hit KO, but we survive the Thunderbolt in return, and we can simply knock it out the next turn with a Seismic Toss. So Giovanni's just not smart enough to use his Earthquake against our Kadabra there. Otherwise, that one might have been kind of tough, but that's the problem with Smart AI in Gen 1. Smart AI only looks at super effective or not super effective. It doesn't consider the actual amount of damage that a move will do, and therefore you end up in a lot of situations like that where the AI doesn't have a super effective move, so it just randomizes between all of its moves. And that effectively means that you get a lot of these spots where, like, sure, you're not great against the opponent, but they just use the wrong move so they don't actually get an advantage on you. So up next, of course, we've got Koga, and I just want to kind of see what his team looks like. Of course, he's got 3 Venonats and a Venomoth here. Our ideal Pokemon, of course, is just going to be to use our Kadabra against him, but I kind of want to just test this out. Kadabra is currently our strongest Pokemon at level 42, and it might be strong enough to basically sweep. The real question is just how do we do against that final Venomoth? Because I'm pretty sure it's still faster than us and will be able to knock us out pretty easily. But let's just see. Let's see what the movesets look like. Yes, I know I'm going in with Hitmonlee as my lead. We're going to get destroyed by Psychic. I think that's fine. So Koga attempt number 1 here. I'm just going to go for Body Slam on this first Venonat. Of course, Psychic does massive damage, but we knock it out on the next turn. We can Body Slam here against the second Venonat. We do get knocked out there. Let's send out our Kadabra now. We'll go for Psychic and one-shot that Pokemon. Psychic on the next Venonat is also a one-hit KO. And now we are still slower than the Venomoth. He goes Sleep Powder, we wake up. He goes Stun Spore after that. Then he goes for an X attack. So I'm going to put him to sleep and now try to go for Psychic on this Pokemon. We do well over half as he uses another X attack. Double Edge does knock our Kadabra out, but now we should be faster with just about anything. So we'll just send out Haunter and use our Nightshade in order to win. So it was actually not that hard to get through that fight, considering we have 4 Pokemon available. I'm so used to fighting him as a solo challenge, in which case I think within a couple levels we would have been able to beat him with our Haunter on its own. We just needed to be able to outspeed against that final Venomoth, and we would have been perfectly fine. Still, we've taken a lot of optional battles here just because I'm grinding up a team rather than doing a solo challenge, which always takes a lot more time. But just like that, we have managed to get another gym badge. We're ready to move on in the game. Now, I think this next section is where Nidoking is going to become very important as a Pokemon with stab ground to use against Blaine, but I also think that of our 3 Pokemon that we can use, we're probably going to be wise to go in with our Kadabra, and we can also maybe go in with our Hitmonlee. The other gym, of course, that we can take on right now is Sabrina, in which case I think we go with Kadabra. I think we use Jolteon, and then none of our other Pokemon are particularly great against those psychic types, so we're gonna have to really see how that one goes. So here we've actually made it to Blaine first, and I've decided to take this fight on because of the fact that we don't really have anything good against Sabrina. This is most likely the best chance that we're gonna get, so let's just see how this fight actually goes and see if even at a kind of low level, Nidoking with its Stab Earthquake can manage to get through this. So here against Blaine, I'm just going to lead off with Earthquake. Now he's faster with his Ninetales and can use Fire Spin on us, which is really not good. But then he Confused Rays us the next turn. We nearly one-shot. It's going to be a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon. Our first member goes down. I'm going to switch now to Kadabra, and let's just see if we can knock this Pokemon out. Sure enough, we do. Out comes Rapidash, where it body slams and one-shots us. So I think our best bet for our last Pokemon is to go with our Hitmonlee. It's our highest level Pokemon that's remaining. We get paralyzed by a body slam and then fire blasted down. So clearly this fight just isn't happening at this point. So I think our best bet is just to grind levels here. So I'm going to box a few of my Pokemon and just use the main ones that I want to use in this fight in order to level up. The next attempt, we actually managed to knock out Rapidash after putting it to sleep with Haunter, but now we're not allowed to use any sleep strats on the Arcanine. So we're really hoping not to get hit by Fire Blast. We did manage to paralyze it. It could go rest and heal up, but it doesn't. So we win on the very next attempt. Without really grinding at all, we managed to finally get through that fight. Still, I'm not feeling super confident about Sabrina. She doesn't have Smart AI in this version, but she's still going to have a really strong team, and we're going to need some luck, I think, to get through this one. And honestly, this is probably the time to go get some new Pokemon. Still, let's just try Sabrina one time with our current team and just see how she goes. Maybe we find a way through. So first up, she has her Abra, which is not just flashing us in this one. It knows Psychic, Seismic Toss, Thunder Wave, and Substitute. So I think our best bet is to go for Earthquake here and try to one-shot this Pokemon. We do. Out comes Kadabra next. It's got basically the same moveset, it just switched Substitute for Recover. Here we get Seismic Toss again though, so we managed to knock out 2 of her Pokemon. We've made it all the way to the Alakazam that goes Recover, and she's just spamming Recover here? If she doesn't go Psychic, I think we win. And just like that, we beat Sabrina on the first attempt with Nidoking. We didn't even use any other Pokemon. That's stupid. So yeah, Pokemon Yellow Sabrina is just kind of bad, honestly. She just really didn't give us anything to worry about there. I forgot to take out my other Pokemon from the PC or swap anything out, and it just didn't even matter. So with that, we are ready to go and take on Giovanni if we want to. And he's got a team of 5 Pokemon, so we're going to have to use pretty much everything we've got. I think Kadabra is going to be the key there, but let's just see how this section actually goes. So So first up, he has Doug Trio, of course. It knows Slash, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Substitute. It's only going to go Earthquake here because he does have Smart AI. I just kind of want to see what the ranges look like. He, of course, knocks us out with that Pokemon, but if instead we use something like Magicmon, he's just going to randomize here. Of course, Slash is enough to knock us out. Just see what we do here with our Hitmonlee. We actually survive an Earthquake here, and then technically we could come in and just use just about anything with our other Pokemon. We're just too slow, so we're getting knocked out by the Earthquakes. So clearly that just didn't work. We're going to need more levels or a different team in order to get this fight to go. So after a quick trip to the Safari Zone, I managed to get myself a Tauros at level 21. I'm going to have to go ahead and level this one up, but it knows Body Slam, Hyper Beam, Blizzard, and Earthquake, a pretty standard competitive set. And we've got Coconut, our Exeggutor, which is of course rocking the Double Powder, Sleep Powder, Stun Spore, Psychic, and of course Explosion. Could be useful later on. I'm not going to use it quite yet, but we're going to get these Pokemon leveled up so that they can actually be part of the team. I'm at this point already way far into this run. It's been a very long time. I think even the timer probably glitched out at some point. So I've just simply given myself rare candies. You could transfer them in via the color case, of course, and there's item duplication in Gen 1. So I'm simply doing this to speed this process up. Let's see how we do when we actually get our Pokemon to proper levels. So now with the entire team at level 50, let's just see how we do now against Giovanni, where honestly our best bet is probably to lead off with Exeggutor, which isn't weak to anything from that first Doug Trio, and we can also use status if we absolutely need to. So Giovanni attempt number 2, we're going to come in and immediately just go Psychic on the first Doug Trio. It's going to be a 2-hit KO. We tank the Slash just fine, and out comes Persian. Now Persian Slash is really strong. We got a nice special drop there, but we didn't get a chance to get another attack off. So I'm going to switch to my Tauros. Now Tauros of course should be able to KO this Pokemon with a Hyper Beam. Out next comes the Nidoqueen. We will go for Blizzard here. I know it's not the strongest move. Earthquake's probably a little bit stronger, but I wanted to see if I could manage to get the freeze. Next is Nidoking. I'm going to go for the same strategy as he guard specs. He goes Blizzard back on me and gets a critical hit, knocking Tauros out. So I'm going to go for some Nidoking on Nidoking violence here. He Blizzards my Nidoking, I Earthquake his and knock him out. Now we've made it to the final ride-on, where I do think Blizzard is the best play. It does pretty good damage, 75% or so, as we go down. Now it's time to just put out our Kadabra and finish this off with a Psychic. And just like that, we do in fact manage to beat Giovanni. Now, like I said, my timer got reset in that whole process of catching my Safari Zone Pokemon. So scores and times are off. This isn't a speed run, guys, so it's not a big deal. I may come back and update you later on what the actual time was to get through Giovanni. We're probably talking around 4 hours of real time, I think. But yet again, I was spending time running around in the Safari Zone, chucking balls to try to get that Tauros. So, you know, how Ash Ketchum managed to catch like 50 Tauros is beyond me, since they made it basically impossible to catch it in this version of the game. But now we've reached the one part of the game where I do actually have to turn badges on in order to fight the rival and make our way through the Pokemon League. So let's just see how we do against rival number 6. But for some reason, the rival fight isn't working for me, so I'm going to simply skip it. Let's make our way to the league. Now, due to that glitch, I did have to use a walk through walls glitch in order to get here to the Indigo Plateau, but we are now here and ready to try our hand against the league. So I'm just going to buy a bunch of revives and full restores, and then we're going to see how we do in this section of the game. And I don't think there's really any change to make to our team. Now, we have to use only 5 Pokemon against each league member, and then we can use our full team at the very end against the champion. But this is the team I'm going in with. I've got Exeggutor, I've got Tauros, I've got Nidoking, I've got Jolteon, we've got Haunter and Kadabra. Certainly not the best team, but hey, for the amount of time that I've put in so far, I think it's good enough. Let's just see if we can manage to beat Lorelei. So first up, we've got Lorelei with her Dugong. I'm just going to go for the Psychic here. She's going for Blizzard against me, of course, since it will be super effective. But we do manage to knock that Pokemon out. Now I think is a decent time to put this Cloyster to sleep if we can. Unfortunately, it knocks us out before we get the chance. So I'm going to change to Zapion here, and let's go for Thunderbolt. We get the nice one-hitter on Cloyster. We're going to stick with Thunderbolt here on the Slowbro. She heals, so we easily get through that Pokemon. Now, I don't know what the best play is, but I think we just stick with Thunderbolt here on Jinx. It goes Psychic. We Thunderbolt again. She Super Potions. Now we get to knock that Pokemon out, and Lapras is out last. We nearly one-shot. It misses with a Sing, and we knock it out the next turn. So just like that, we easily beat Lorelei on the first attempt. So I am going to bring Exeggutor back for this fight against Bruno, just because I think it is one of the best Pokemon for this particular battle. Let's see how it goes. So here, I don't think there's much strategy. I think we just go for Psychic. He explodes on us with his first Onix. Now we're on to Hitmonchan. It goes Agility. We simply get to knock it out. Hitmonlee goes X Defense, so we get to knock that Pokemon out. The second Onix also explodes, knocking out our Exeggutor. So I'm just going to go with my Kadabra for the final Machamp. We go Psychic. We get the one-hitter. Easy victory. Bruno wasn't really too bad, but he did manage to knock out one Pokemon, so he was actually better than normal. Usually that would have been an easy one-hit KO sweep with all of our Pokemon, basically. I don't think he could defeat any members of our team, outside of maybe Jolteon, but even then, I think we'd find a way. So we've made it to Agatha. It is definitely time for us to come in with our Kadabra and our Exeggutor as our main Pokemon. Let's just see how this fight goes. She could be random, especially because 3 of her Pokemon no explosion. And Agatha's just random with her move choice, so she totally could use it. Let's find out. So first up, we've got the Gengar, and of course, this Pokemon could explode on us. Instead, it goes Thunderbolt turn 1, but we do not get the one-hitter with Psychic. We do get a 2-hit KO, though. Out next comes Golbat. It goes Double Edge. We're simply going to use Psychic to knock that Pokemon out. Haunter's out third. We go Psychic and get the one-hitter. Arbok, I think I'm going to explode if I get the chance. Unfortunately, I didn't. So it's time to bring in Kadabra. We go Psychic and one-shot that Pokemon, and now the final Gengar tries to go Hypnosis. We go Psychic. Now it hits Thunderbolt, but it's too late for her to do anything. We easily win against Agatha on the first attempt. Agatha's only really hard in solo challenges when you have like one Pokemon. You're generally doing just fine when you have a team. Team challenges generally take the randomness out of that fight as long as you have team members that are good enough for that fight. So now let's move on to Lance, and we don't have a whole lot of good Pokemon to use here. I mean, we're just generally going to be using our strongest wherever we can, but it is pretty clear that we need to lead off with Jolteon against that first Gyarados. So first up, we've got Gyarados. I'm going to go Thunderbolt and get the easy one-hit KO. Dragonair is out next. I'm going to Thunder Wave this Pokemon in order to paralyze it. And then it's not like any of our moves are going to be super strong here, so I'm going to take this opportunity to swap out. And since the AI always chooses moves after, we know that if we switch to Nido-sama, we're going to get hit by Blizzard, whereas if we switch to Bully, it's not guaranteed what it's going to use. So here, once we get our Tauros out, we're simply going to go Blizzard and get the one-hit KO there. We'll go for Blizzard again on Dragonair. This turns out to be a 2-hitter and we get paralyzed, but we do manage to knock that Pokemon out. Here, Aerodactyl finishes us off, unfortunately, with a Flamethrower. So now I'm going to send Jolteon back out. Fire Blast did a lot, but we managed to do massive damage with Thunderbolt. Now it hit me with Toxic, unfortunately. But we're going to Thunder Wave on the final Dragonite, and after getting it paralyzed, we can switch in Nidoking to use Blizzard. It does massive damage, but does not get the KO. Still, we can use 2 more Pokemon here. I'm going to send out my Kadabra and go for Psychic. It doesn't quite get the 1-hitter, but it does get the 2-hitter after he uses Thunder Wave on me. So just like that, I managed to beat Lance. That was not pretty by any means. It was definitely a really close fight, considering that we had 2 Pokemon left over technically, but still not great by any means. Still, we have made it to the champion with our team. It's time to just heal up and see if we can actually win this fight. Now, one thing that I am quite sure of is that we are going to want to lead off with Exeggutor against the first couple Pokemon here, because we're going to be dealing with the rivals Sandslash, then Alakazam, then his own Exeggutor. So the Pokemon that we have that most resists those Pokemon is our own Exeggutor. So here against the champion, his Sandslash knows Swords Dance, Hyper Beam, and Substitute. I think this is actually a really good Pokemon to put to sleep, but I'm not sure. Maybe Psychic is enough. Here he goes Hyper Beam. I'm simply going Psychic. It's going to be a 2-hit KO to knock that Pokemon out. Now I'm just going to go Boom on Alakazam, and we knock that Pokemon out. So 2 of his Pokemon are down. We've only used 1 of our own as we move on to the Exeggutor. Now for Exeggutor, I'm going to start by paralyzing it. It goes Explosion though and knocks out my Jolteon. That's perfectly fine because next he should have a Magneton, so I think this is a perfect spot for our Nidoking. Here he goes Rest, I go Earthquake. It's going to be a 2-hit KO, but because of smart AI, he's only going to use Rest because he sees that we're a poison type, so we get the free KO on that Pokemon. Cloyster's next. I'm going to go Thunderbolt, but Blizzard hits first. Nothing I can do there. Now we will simply swap in a different Pokemon. I'm going to send out my Tauros here. Let's Body Slam to try to get the paralysis. Instead, we get 1-hit KO'd by a Blizzard. So I'm sending out my Kadabra to try to knock this Pokemon out. We tank a Blizzard and we knock it out on the next turn. Flareon is out now. I'm going Thunder Wave to try to paralyze it. It's fully paralyzed, so I'm going to take this chance to heal. It misses a Fire Spin, and now Psychic, followed by it hitting a Hyper Beam, knocking out my Kadabra. I'm to my final Pokemon, which is, of course, my Haunter. And we have to hope that I can manage to actually get this to go. Fire Blast knocks me out. So the first attempt against the champion did not go, but let's try this again. Maybe we can get just slightly better luck in the next attempt. So back again, let's try this time with Psychic. Of course, Hyper Beam does massive damage, but we survive with 69 HP. Very nice. Alakazam's out next. We boom and easily knock that Pokemon out. Now let's just think, what do we actually want to do here? I think I'm still going to stick with the strategy of sending out my Jolteon, and I'm going to see what Pin Missile does. This time we miss, however. Yet again, it booms. That doesn't really change the results at all. So here we will simply go Earthquake once again on the Magneton, knowing that this is a free Pokemon. Magneton can do nothing to our Nidoking here. Cloyster, we know we have no shot. It's just going to knock us out. It's perfectly fine. But we also know that Kadabra can actually tank the hits, so I'm going to send this Pokemon out. We get a nice critical hit there. It explodes to knock us out, but now that leaves us with the final Flareon, and we're sending out our Haunter. What I'm hoping for is to be able to land Hypnosis. I do, and since this is the only Pokemon I'm putting to sleep in this one, we can simply go into the Nightshades here and then just boom in order to knock him out. We still had 1 Pokemon left. Tauros didn't even get used in the final battle. So just like that, we are able to beat the entire game, even when we give competitive movesets. Now, we did need to do it as a team. A solo challenge for this, you're probably getting to a very, very high level, even with pretty strong Pokemon. There's a couple reasons why I think that would be the case. Number one, we saw just The biggest challenge I found in this entire run was just the fact that so many opponents know Explosion, which results in a lot of battles where you end up losing just because a tie always goes against the player. But technically there were a lot of fights that were ties at the end of the day. Still, we managed to beat the champion while still having a team that was at lower levels than him, and it wasn't that inconsistent at the end. It was just a matter of finding the right strategy. So I would say that there were really two takeaways. Yes, competitive movesets would have dramatically increased the difficulty of the game, I think in a really positive way, but the AI is still not smart enough to use that. I would really be interested to come back in a future gen, even Gen 2, where the AI will actually calculate damage and ranges to knock the player out into its calculations when choosing its moves. That could make a much bigger challenge, but that's something I'll try in the future. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you know anything about how to program AI into a ROM, you know, if there's any like really good programmer out there, maybe drop me a comment and let me know, because that could be a fun project for the future. I'm going to get to updating my overlay so that it will properly work for challenges like this in the future, because obviously we could see a lot of graphical glitches as we were going. But yeah, a lot of fun, and I'm just gonna maybe make a patch of this and share it to you guys if you want to try it yourselves. And did I get any of the competitive movesets wrong? Tell me down below. Obviously I'm using Smogan, but some of the articles directly say that since certain changes to the metagame, this data is outdated. For example, I mean, who's gonna have a brand new moveset for a Rattata? Anyway, that does it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Later.